So welcome everybody. This is Southwest Missouri SCORE's Tuesdays at 2 webinar series. We do this in partnership with the Springfield Greene County Library. That's my employer. My name is Katie Pattison. I am the branch manager at the Schweitzer Brentwood Branch Library in Springfield, Missouri, and help coordinate business resources for the library. And I'm also the workshop chair for SCORE Southwest Missouri. We do these Tuesdays at 2 every second and fourth Tuesday of each month. If you're not already signed up for SCORE's newsletters, you may want to head to our website and do that. That's swmissouri.score.org. And we'll use the chat today to ask questions or interact. So feel free to throw your questions or your comments in the chat throughout the webinar, and I'll kind of monitor those for Elizabeth while she's speaking. And we'll have time for Q&A at the end as well. This is Recruitment and Retention Strategies for Small Business with Elizabeth Hurst. She's the Business Development Manager for HR Advantage, and I'll introduce her in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you just a little bit about SCORE. SCORE is a nationwide nonprofit that is there for you for the life of your business. We have mentoring and resources to support you whatever stage you're at, from idea to exit. And there are three big ways that SCORE helps small businesses. We have free business advice and mentoring. You can sign up to get a SCORE mentor on the SCORE website, score.org, and they can match you with someone locally or even someone across the country that has specialty in your particular needs or field of business. That is a free service. We also offer low or no cost business training, just like the workshop you're in today. And you can watch workshops from all over the US with SCORE. If you go to score.org, you'll see those, or you can see our local webinars at swmissouri.score.org. And if you are not aware, SCORE also has a wide variety of business templates and resources. You can find those at score.org as well. So that website is going to be your kind of central place to find out and get access to all the things that SCORE does. Everything SCORE does is possible through the effort of our volunteers nationwide. There are over 10,000 SCORE volunteers serving clients in over 1,500 communities. If you'd like to make a difference in our local business community or your local business community, we would love to have you involved with SCORE. There are lots of ways you can be involved. You can become a mentor. You can help plan workshops. We have an amazing women's conference we do in the fall. If you're interested in learning more about that, reach out to me in the chat, or you can visit our website again, swmissouri.score.org. Here's that contact info one more time. Here's our volunteer application. Here is our local website. And thank you everybody for being here today. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our presenter, Elizabeth Hurst. Elizabeth serves as Business Development Manager for Human Resource Advantage, specializing in client engagement and satisfaction. She holds a Master's of Business Administration from Drury University and a Bachelor of Arts degree. Her areas of experience include business development, account management, recruiting, communications, and strategic planning. Elizabeth has worked in sales and recruiting roles in the Springfield community for over 10 years. She uses strategy and communication to help businesses and individuals develop best practices to achieve their goals. And she takes great pride in building relationships on the principles of integrity and exceptional service. Elizabeth is a Springfield native, and she's an active alumna of Drury University. In addition, she's an alumna and member of the Greater Missouri Leadership Foundation, Women's Initiative Committee, St. Jude ALSAC Regional Advisory Board, St. Jude Walk Run Committee, Doula Foundation, Board of Directors, and an active board member, deacon, and musician at her church. Elizabeth's most important job, above all others, is motherhood. She and her husband, Justin, have 2 young boys and enjoy spending precious time together, traveling and entertaining friends and family. Elizabeth, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to be back here. I always love the interactions I have with the folks that I meet and visit with through SCORE. So just really appreciate what you guys are doing to try and provide resources to our business community, especially our small business community. So thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm noticing, I can see some of the participants here. I'm noticing people that are from, the client employer, background, providing different services to businesses. We've got folks that are community service leaders, folks that are in government. So that really excites me because I feel like what I would like to accomplish even in a short period of time is I've got a lot of information and we can take that any direction we want to go. So if you're brave, you know, speak up and maybe we can have some relevant conversations that will help you take away what you want to take away, because we will not tackle all the underpinnings of recruitment and retention in 1 hour. It's just not possible, but we're going to try. We're going to try at least to get a pulse on it. And maybe my goal is just to kind of provide you with some things that perhaps you can take away into your workplace that might add some value. So I guess without further ado, I will share my PowerPoint here. I will try my best to try and monitor chat. And I know, Katie, you're awesome about that. So if somebody thinks of a question or something, you know, please help interact. So thank you guys all for being here. So, okay, are we ready? I'm gonna share my screen here. And can you all see that? Okay. And
yes.
Again, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just we can see your screen, looks good.
Okay, excellent. So feel free to speak up too if you just want to ask a question or as we get through this. I do want to ask the group, how many of you are in a position where you're in a recruitment or related to recruitment or in need of recruiting individuals? Where you have employees or you have, you know, several employees at your firm. I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Q&A. That's not what I want.
Oh yeah, I think most people are in the chat there. You can use either, folks, if you want, but number of people saying that they are definitely in that.
Okay. Okay. So you have employees, so what I'm trying to gauge is how many of us here are just starting in this process and how many of us have, you know, several employees budgeted at our firms that we're trying to, okay, independent agents, good. So, okay, I just kind of wanted to get a sense of that. So thank you guys. So recruitment and retention, this is obviously a huge topic. The articles are just flying, the commentary is flying on this subject, and it has been even before the pandemic. However, as we all know, the pandemic has sort of expedited these conversations. So I do not pretend to be the end-all be-all expert of why these things are what they are, but we do our best to keep a pulse on a level of boots on the ground with our client employers. HR Advantage, we work with employers of various sizes that have different needs, and so we're getting feedback from that angle, as well as keeping a pulse on kind of that macro level of what's happening across the nation as we look at these topics. So pre-pandemic, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background, you know, there was a labor shortage that was coming down the pike. We've already seen changing employee expectations, the need for flexible work hours, the need for more time off. Some of the things that are now in higher awareness were already there before. And just to kind of give you an example, in February of 2020, before this pandemic hit us, we had the lowest unemployment rate in history. So the labor shortage that we're experiencing was already in the making, and then having a pandemic obviously expedited some of those things. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there so that we all know that this isn't all just created by the pandemic, and it's not going to all go away when the pandemic does end. So what happened? So we have this thing we keep hearing about. It's called the Great Resignation or turnover tsunami, which I find quite dramatic. And what is the cause for that? There are multiple factors that go into this, and we certainly can't just chalk it up to, well, nobody wants to work anymore. That would be an excuse for us. I think this is an opportunity for all of us to kind of look at what we can do, what we have control over, and assess it, because now we're in a position where we really have to compete for labor. So we have this pandemic situation. 40% of US workers are actively searching. Almost half are reporting higher turnover. 2021 was a high turnover, high movement year. And then I just kind of cited some areas where we're seeing a lot of that turnover: customer service, operations, and logistics. These aren't necessarily the places where there's the highest labor shortage, but just as far as turnover is concerned. Why are they leaving? Why are they moving? You're going to see these concepts repeat themselves. There's no one particular reason, but these are some of the things, the big things that have been cited, and this is before and after, and this is based on some studies that have been done nationwide. Different studies are going to kind of give you some different numbers or prioritize these, but these are pretty much in order. So many decades ago, compensation was supreme, right? It still is. However, the weight of these other areas have increased. So if you were to pull the nation, you would still find that compensation is the number one important factor in why someone stays or goes or takes a job. However, these other pieces have gained more importance among the workforce. So you can see them there. Career advancement, that is simply opportunities to advance within their career. If they're working at a place where either it's not big enough to advance, or they're not experiencing professional development in place of advancement or alongside advancement, that could be a key reason why someone might be wanting to move. And some of these factors are stronger depending on what generation that person is a part of. So just to keep that in mind. And then when we talk about the domino effect, that is, oh, my good friend, or 3/4 of my friends have switched jobs, and now I have a confidence to do so as well, because that's something that I've been thinking about. And I think the biggest takeaway for me in reading some of the studies that we're looking at is that there's a large number of folks who are saying that they're staying in their positions, but they're citing that the reason they stay is because they're afraid of what could happen down the road. They're afraid of job security. And to me, that is not an adequate reason to want to stay. So even folks that are staying, a large portion of those are staying for reasons that, as an employer, we don't want to hear. Those aren't the reasons we want to be hearing. And I really can't see the chat, so speak up, guys, if you have something to say or have a question. Okay.
So far, so good.
Okay. So moving forward, 2022. I don't have a crystal ball, but from what we're seeing, it's another strong candidate market. Just so you guys know, HR Advantage, we provide those HR services to client employers, and then we have a recruitment division. So we recruit in a lot of different types of positions, all the way up to the C-suite. And so we are seeing a very strong candidate market. Folks really have the leverage, if the ones that are searching for jobs. And so that gap continues. And so I want to cite something that's really interesting. This is really across the board. It's not specific to low wage positions versus high wage positions, or skilled or unskilled. And I'll give you an example of that in case this is important to your industry. In low wage positions, 6.5 to 7 million job openings for roles that do not require a college degree are unfolding. So we continue to add jobs to the economy, and we have 7 million jobs in that box that don't require a skill set or a college degree. But we have 2.8 million unemployed people without a college degree. So you can see there's a gap there. And so that's just to say that this is bigger than just the pandemic, but it has to do with a changing workforce. And so just to keep that in mind. So what can we do? We can only control what we can control. We have to try and be agile and adapt to the situation in front of us. And we have seen that take place in places like the tech industry. So for those of you that know the tech industry, they're very forward on what they offer to employees, you know, on-site meals and on-site childcare and high pay and more time off. And why is that? Is it because they're larger companies? Does anybody know why the tech industry has already been doing this for a while? Nobody's chiming in. Okay. Competition. Exactly. Competition. So basically, this is the workforce by generation, by the way, which you've got Gen Z up here. That's gonna explode. So I don't really want to go down that road because we only have so much time. So tech industry, competition. They have needed tech people way longer than the pandemic has squeezed that industry. And that is why they are forward. So now we're in that same position and we're saying, well, what can we do? And so I think it's interesting to look at industries that have already been squeezed and tapped before our industries have come to that. So we're talking about recruitment here first, and then I'll move on to retention, leveraging your labor pool. So guys, the pandemic did some weird stuff. And even prior to that, we have seen companies on a larger scale take a second look at who their labor pool is, consider the job and consider the requirements and rethink that and say, who can we be reaching out to? How can we change our structure to open up our labor pool to more qualified individuals? So the reason I say women is because we had 2 million women drop out of the labor force between September and January of 2020 to January of 2021. And not that many of them returned. I think they had 40% return. So we continue to have an exodus that is larger on the side of women. You've got older workers. So you have basically 10,000 baby boomers a day hitting retirement age, but a lot of them are looking for opportunities to continue working. So can you provide opportunities for your retirees to stay? They call it the returnship. And just some outside the box ways to attract workers who have skills and have qualifications, but they're not participating in the workforce because of whatever constructs are in existence, either at our company or on a larger scale. Does that kind of make sense? Obviously, some positions you can't just ban the box, but ban the box is going to refer to previous history, criminal history, rethinking what's appropriate with those requirements. Obviously, tapping into diverse populations that are underrepresented in our industries. And then disabled individuals, veterans, you would think there's so many businesses out there that they want to hire veterans, but that's not necessarily always the case, depending on how positions are functioning. So these are just some ideas for you guys to kind of get acclimated to the idea that we have constructs that we develop our positions and our companies and our budgets on that don't necessarily have to exist. And sometimes they inadvertently eliminate those that we could open our labor pool to. Any thoughts on that? I want to go back. Can you go back? Okay. Now if I start clicking on stuff. Okay. So here's just kind of a few recruitment strategies that I want to share with you guys. And some of this is really simple, but it can make a huge difference. Anytime I discuss with a potential client who's going to use HR Advantage for recruitment. We have a conversation about the job. What are the requirements? What are the qualifications? And we have those conversations about who should we be looking for? And sometimes we will find that that job hasn't really been looked at for a while. So if that's the case in your organization, please review your job descriptions. They're important for a reason, and this is why. We need that job description to be apples to apples when we go out there and we try to attract a person, because what happens when they get into the job and it really doesn't match what we're explaining, or it doesn't really match what we say we want it to be. It's evolved over time. So that's really important to assess the job and be open about what kind of skills are needed to perform that job well. So that's just a very cookie cutter thing, but it's extremely important, and it reaches all elements of the employee life cycle, from recruitment all the way through advancement. So just keep that in mind. Review your recruitment process. Is it rigid? Oh, I had a TikTok video I wanted to share with you guys, but darn, I didn't get it queued up. Basically what it was a girl back in, 2010, who's a recruiter. She's on the phone. She's telling the person who has a face tattoo with no transportation and, a felony, like, I'm sorry, we're going to pass on that. Right. And now we're in 2022 and she's like, oh, I think we can make that work. Obviously that's a joke, but review your process, review your job descriptions, reassess who is a good market for this position, because we're not asking you to lower your standards. We're just saying, is this requirement really necessary for your position? And how are you interacting with different populations in order to fill those roles and to provide development on the job. Okay. So we talk a lot about new hire incentives. And I'm just checking the chat, but I don't see any activity. Okay. So new hire incentives, these are just some options. You can't necessarily always have a budget for this, but these are things to think about. Referrals are huge, huge. Okay. So I can't go back. You guys are going to find out just how untechy I am, even though I'm a millennial. What's up with that? Okay. New hire incentives. If you can have a referral bonus, that is a high quality lead for a new person. Offer that with your employees. Sign-on bonuses and stay bonuses, those can be incredibly powerful, but not alone. So we're going to talk about retention strategies in a minute, but those can be very powerful if they're used correctly. I mentioned some things about, obviously, things that people want to know up front, such as what kind of benefits do you have? That is not always affordable for a small business. So I'm not emphasizing that here for these purposes today, but that's just something to keep in mind, as you move forward and assess the attractiveness of your company. Okay. And just a little bit on sourcing. So these are some really high traffic areas, some really common places that we're seeing recruitment take place online. Indeed is a necessary evil. Can you get it all done with Indeed? Not necessarily, and not necessarily every applicant on Indeed is high quality. Some of them are, but we certainly don't rely on that when we recruit through HR Advantage. So Indeed, LinkedIn, Google for Jobs, but even more so, if you can leverage the educational factor, networking, those employee referrals can be extremely powerful, especially the smaller the business you are. These recruitment platforms are expensive and they continue to be expensive. So if you can leverage other ways to bring in new employees, please look at doing that, especially with those employee referrals. Any thoughts on that, guys? I'm sorry, I don't have any pictures, no TikTok videos, so boring. Okay, so consider the why. These are the same things that keep coming up. So we have the top reasons why employees leave. Again, not always in this order, but somewhat in this order. Inadequate salary and benefits. I will talk about that in a moment. But this is something we really need to take a look at. Right now, everyone's scrambling. Everybody wants too much pay. What's going on? How do we compete with that? It's hard to do that when we're here, right? So again, Rome wasn't built in a day, but you have to look at your compensation and say, are we stuck in the 90s? Where do we need to go from here? Because it has to be addressed at some point. So LinkedIn, so Dean, I see your message here. LinkedIn can be very powerful. And that's just a way to leverage your own networks or to utilize that platform, even just to showcase your company and represent your company in different ways to be attractive to a potential hire. We also use that to recruit. So we can reach out to individuals through LinkedIn, and that can be, depending on the position or the industry, very successful. I've not had a whole lot of luck, particularly with, just so you guys are aware, I've noticed there's not a lot of medical professionals that are on LinkedIn, and there may be other ways to tap into those, but generally speaking, it's a great way. So consider why are they jumping around? What's going on? We have folks that report inadequate salary and benefits, feeling overworked. That's definitely been exacerbated by pandemic. Limited career advancement. So that's a huge piece, especially guys for Gen Zers. Does anybody know how old the Gen Zers are? I want to know if you guys know. Anybody want to guess? Yes, Jared, exactly. Yes. Brian, very close. So yes, 25 and under. So stop talking about millennials. They are practically managers, and many of them are managers. They are middle management. We have a whole new generation to figure out. But anyway, so Gen Zers, they are actually very much like their parents, or many of their parents, who are in a Gen X generation, who are into upper level and upper management positions, business owners, and they highly value, along with millennials, they highly value opportunities to advance. And even if your company doesn't have a track to advance, you can still offer opportunities for them to develop. And so I'll touch on that here again, but there are ways around that, but they want advancement. They don't feel that their education is adequate and has adequately prepared them for the workforce. So they need our nurturing within the work area, which can be hard, but it's doable. And it's definitely a high priority for a large portion of the workforce. So just keep that in mind. Work-life balance, once again. So you guys have seen the list here. This is just me repeating myself on purpose. Okay, so why are they potentially leaving? What matters to them? Every culture, company, team, department, individual is going to have their own reasons. Ask them. Ask them. So I can't preach this enough. We can do all we can do. We can have big recruitment budgets. We can have fancy platforms. We can have perfect onboarding automation. And you know what? They know within the first week if this is a place that they want to stay. So keep that in mind. And if you have the intentions to hold on to them and you really want to know, this is the best way to go about it. Find out about your team. So exit interviews are already after the fact, right? That is when someone has chosen and given notice to leave the organization. Oftentimes they will have HR or a third party like HR Advantage to provide exit interviews. That's not something that should necessarily always be done by your direct supervisor. I would not suggest that. But if you have the resources to make that happen, oftentimes what we will see is sometimes patterns. Maybe it's just one bad manager. It could just be one bad manager that's causing turnover in some area of your company. That probably needs to be addressed. Is it the pay? We have a client who has 50 retail stores across the United States. They work in a very cool, edgy industry. Their employees love to work for the industry. They love the culture. They love the company. The pay is crap, guys. It's crap. And that's what we have found through this exit interview process. However, if you are going to go down this road, exit interviews, stay interviews, that's going to be ask your current employees that aren't indicating they're leaving, just ask them what they love about working for the company, and do that in a safe and confidential manner. That can tell you so much, and that's where you should start. Because again, you can't tackle it all, right? So tackle what matters to your team. Engagement surveys, that's the same process, just to find out what matters to them. What do they value? And then check-ins. I mean this in an informal manner, but you can do this in a formal manner too. Find out what they love about working for you, and what would make their work environment more, I don't want to say likable, but more conducive to performance, and make them create a better work environment for themselves. But with all of this, guys, if you don't plan on doing anything to act on some of these, don't do it. Because it's actually probably worse to ask and to engage in this way and have no change than it is to just not go there. Okay, so if you want your head in the sand, keep it there. I know that sounds kind of harsh and direct, but truly, you have to kind of think about that. And that doesn't mean that you can, obviously appease every employee, but just keep those things in mind. So here's some more retention strategies that we have found through working with our clients that are extremely important. So I'll just try to kind of work through these. And again, sorry, I have no pictures. I hope we have some time left over to just maybe chat about this a little bit. So consider your competitive environment. Guys, we've been doing a lot of compensation analyses for clients lately. It's crazy. And while I love that we provide that service and we do a great job and that we're providing valuable information to the client, that is a moving target. And so keep in mind that if you're wanting to look at your competitive environment, what do I mean by that? I mean, what other industries, companies, work environments are you competing with? Who are you attracting from, and who are you losing your employees to? And I think what's something that's really important that we need to consider is our competitive universe. So sometimes when we do a competitive analysis on compensation, we have employers that want us to just pull from our local area. They just want to know what's happening in Springfield. They just want to know what's happening in Southwest Missouri. And under certain circumstances, that's okay and that's understandable. But is that really who you're competing with? There's just the folks here in Southwest Missouri. We have we have employers that are moving into this area who are paying wages well above what this area is used to paying. We have folks that are now working remote in their industries that are collecting Kansas City and Chicago and St. Louis and Tulsa salaries, who are buying up houses and goods and living the Springfield, Southwest Missouri, wonderful Ozarks life. So all I'm saying is think bigger, and you may not be able to compete on all levels, but consider who truly is your competition for talent, okay? Does anyone have any thoughts about that? This is a big topic right now. Do you agree with those statements? Disagree? I'm just gonna take a moment here to wipe my nose, take a drink of water, what you guys think about that. Okay, we had a little bit of action here. Yeah, it's huge. And so again, just think bigger. We can't always compete on wages, but that is a big piece right now. So there are a lot of resources you can use that are not always the perfect. It depends on the position, but there are ways to do some comparisons out there. Sometimes you can go to like salary.com. Sometimes Indeed will provide that information. But in order to get that accurate information, guess what? Your job description has to be up to date and accurate without an inflated title. So just keep that in mind. Can you offer tangible benefits? If you can't offer benefits, what can you offer to rise above what your peers are doing in this area? And then plan for it. So if you really want to be competitive, plan for those changes and look at your budget and find out what kind of impact that will or will not have on your budget. This is a big one, guys. Flexibility and work-life balance. So with flexible schedules, we're simply talking about, does your company have the opportunity to provide some flexible schedules to individuals? Why would this matter? Well, I'll go back to the 2 million women that dropped out of the workforce. A lot of them dropped out of the workforce because school went back into session, but a lot of them were hybrid and virtual. And so people just threw in the towel and they just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I can't be a at-home virtual learner and not have the opportunity to work from home. And that's just one example. But more and more people are a little bit stressed, they're a little burned out. And so we're finding, what can we do to provide more flexibility in the workplace? And then in the light of that, shift our expectations from quantity to quality. So we can provide flexible schedules. Hybrid and remote work are highly on the rise, and they are highly cited by workers as something that they would like more options for. It's not everyone, and not everyone can work remotely, but truly look at the positions that you have in front of you and ask the question objectively, can this position work from home if I'm able to measure performance from a performance measure and from a deliverable measure, not just are they clocking in and clocking out? So that's very high on the radar. Compressed work weeks, that's, for example, 410s or 312s. Part-time options, this is huge, guys. You know, a decade ago, there were not that many part-time positions, and now we're seeing more and more employers go, okay, well, here is the job we need filled. It's a one full-time, 40-hour-a-week position, and we're having trouble. Well, who are you looking for? Well, I need a dental assistant. Okay, well, we happen to know that dental assistants are primarily women of childbearing age. So have you considered splitting that into 2 part-time positions? Just a thought. Okay, so that's just an example. PTO is paid time off. That's a big one. So again, that's a work-life balance piece. Really consider what the cost is to you to increase your PTO, and whether or not that's something that you can afford, perhaps over an increase in pay. You will find that a lot of especially, excuse me, millennials and younger Gen Xers that really, really, really highly value this because they are in that childbearing age, and some of them even are compressed where, like me, they have small children and aging parents all at the same time. So just a thought there. Other benefits and rewards that you consider: wellness memberships. Bonuses can be extremely motivating for some. Childcare stipends, tuition reimbursement, and pet insurance. I know it's a silly pet insurance, really, but you know what? Some people have pets and those are their babies. So these are just some thoughts. And overall, to say, oh, we can't let this go flexible or remote. Really consider the position, and what that's going to force employers for us to do is to look at how we assess performance. And that's another challenge, but it can be done. It can be done. Somebody had a comment, and try to go over to it. Okay, voluntary COVID vaccine incentive program. Some of your staff are big fans of that benefit. Absolutely, absolutely. During the pandemic, there was a period of time where the government mandated that there be some things in place that employers do to protect the jobs of workers. And that is no longer a requirement in all areas and for probably most of you. So we still have COVID raging. I work from home. I had COVID in January, and I'm extremely lucky that I have in-home childcare. Once I got COVID, I gave it to the childcare. So I was out, and then the kids and I were out, and then the childcare was out, and it was like a 3-week ordeal. And had I had to burn all of my PTO for that, that's a whole year's worth of PTO, guys, is gone due to COVID. So this really is stretching us a little bit and making us think like, wow, what can we do to extend an olive branch here? So just a little bit about onboarding, retention. So you have a new hire, they're coming on, you got to do more than just paperwork the first day. Engage with them, get them excited. The job is not done once they sign on the dotted line. You should always be recruiting, and that means always, even within your internal staff, always be recruiting. What can you do to make sure that they're using their skills? Because at the end of the day, we all just want to be able to use our strengths. So emphasize company culture, how they can be a part of that. That's a big piece to it, and develop a plan, put it to paper, write it down. What's our plan for new hires? And that is even down to who's going to take them to lunch on Friday, their first week. And that sounds so silly, but these small gestures can really go a long way. So these are some very just simple things that you can do with a new hire, just to check in and make them know that they're on your mind. And that's extremely powerful when it comes from obviously the hiring supervisor, or even someone that's the owner of the company, to carve out time for a new hire. That's extremely impactful. Is anyone doing that? Does anybody have a story or something that they can share where you feel like you're doing that well, or you have plans to do more with that onboarding process? Anybody want to share? Okay, training pipeline. I saw that, Dean. Thank you. Okay, so again, this is a huge, huge piece, especially for the Gen Zers, those 25 and below that are entering the workforce. They don't feel that either their college education or whatever minimal work experience has prepared them well for the workforce. And I hear it from our clients too. They're like, okay, I'm an insurance agent. I'm trying to hire someone to come in here and be an administrative support person and learn about the insurance and really just kind of take charge of their destiny. Excuse me for a moment. And they come in here and they don't even know how to have a conversation on the phone. I hear that all the time. And there's different reasons for that, guys. But the reality is that in this time of us having kids and instead of sending them down to McAllister's to work or the Chinese food restaurant down the street like I did when I was 15 years old, they're in theater and basketball and year-round club sports that didn't really exist when I was a kid. And suddenly these kids haven't had their chance to embarrass themselves when they were 15, 16, 17, 18, and now they're getting out into the workforce with a college degree and embarrassing themselves. Does that make sense? So training and development is huge, and we have inherited it. And that's just kind of the reality. And it doesn't mean that college education isn't important. It just means that on-the-job training will never not be important. And employees want that. And it's a huge, easy way to engage with them. So how do you do it? Give them check-ins often and informal, providing feedback all the time. I have interns that are 21, 22. They eat it up. They just want that feedback. Am I doing a good job? They want to do a good job. So just take little bits of time out to provide feedback. Cross-training, huge opportunity, especially when you have a relatively flat organization. You're giving people opportunities to explore their strengths and explore their skill sets. And you're just building upon your organizational strength and knowledge while you're doing that. So I highly recommend trying to carve out time to do that. Mentoring is huge. Introduce your talent right away, first week. Introduce them to leadership team and help them build their internal network. Okay, now we're getting into it. Okay, so I just wanted to see your comments here. Well before day one, kudos to you guys for doing that. Kudos to you. Absolutely, give them the support, give them the training. Okay, standard operating procedures to make complicated tasks of contracting more easily passed down. So that's retaining your organizational knowledge, giving those new hires the opportunity to learn, creating pathways for that. And then they can reach out for this, you know, for the other things, you know, so you can have those transactional things here, but then you can also create and carve out time for mentorship. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I do want to create just a moment here, and I know we're getting close to the end, but I want to talk about succession planning. A lot of people kind of think, oh, well, that has to do with filling key roles in an organization. Well, not exactly. What I mean by succession planning is creating opportunities, as I just said, for organizational knowledge to be shared and passed along, and giving employees in the process a track and an outlook on how to develop themselves professionally and personally. So when I say IDPs, that's an individual development plan. Guys, that's easy. A lot of big companies do it. A lot of small companies do not do it. And I highly suggest that you have a template, a form, something, and build around an individual development plan. And that's simply having every employee write down, whether it's yearly or quarterly or whatever you have the capacity to do, write down what their goals are, where they want to develop, and look back at that and let that evolve. And even better, if you can provide them and support them with training to support those goals and learning as they you know, fit within the company. So really consider that if you can. So again, it's identifying talents, identifying knowledge gaps and filling those early and often, and cultivating that engagement with your employees to keep them around. So there are many, many, many benefits to doing these succession planning activities and cross training. Okay, I just want to get back to, there we go, the chat. Okay, you're all looking at me, I won't read this. Yeah, they're traveling around. They're looking to see how their role fits in a larger operation. You know, 40, 50, 60 years ago, you get in there, you get your job done, you go home, job well done. People want to know what their inputs, what kind of impact they have in the world. And they want to know that from an organizational standpoint and from a social standpoint. So excellent to give them that frame of reference. And it is so much easier to keep a good employee. Who said that? Who said that? Dean, yes, you are correct. So much easier to keep them than finding new ones from a cost perspective and all the way around. So this is why I halfway almost flipped this and started with the retention, because I think it is truly, truly important. So great comments here. Absolutely. The big picture, they're more empathetic to their coworkers. This is huge. So a broader frame of reference. So just to kind of wrap it up here, here's some small things you can do. doing these alone in a vacuum is not going to address all pieces of recruitment and retention, but they are relatively small gestures that don't take up too much of your time, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're, we're all busy. We're all busy. Celebrate those wins, celebrate them and do them, and don't be afraid to, big or small, don't be afraid to make those public or known among the team. That goes a long way to let the employees know that you are watching and paying attention, and that those wins do have an impact in the greater scheme of things, as we were just discussing. So provide them kudos, and even write it in a card, send it in an email if you don't have time to do that. Whatever you feel that would make a difference to them. Cite those accomplishments in performance reviews. Sometimes that's easier to do if you don't have compensation tied to your performance reviews, where that kind of leads down to a different road that we don't have time for today. But what I'm saying is you can cite accomplishments in performance reviews, and you should not save performance reviews for criticisms only, but also take time outside of performance reviews and even in check-ins to cite those accomplishments. Pick up the phone and call them. If you have a remote team, pick up that phone and dial their number. I can't tell you how much that is to hear it from someone, especially when we have seemingly disengaged remote workers. This is a great way to do that. So just think about your mode of communication. And when you thank employees or cite accomplishments, resist the urge to coach or counsel on things that they may not be doing as well. Sometimes we need affirmations that stand alone. So just keep that in mind. Public recognition, again, company newsletter, leverage your social media. I know that's exhausting. For me, guys, I'm not a social media person, but it's a necessary evil, and it's a really great way to acknowledge each other and show that we really stand behind our employees, and enough to put them out there. Like, we know you're going to be here for a while. We're letting the world know. So keep that in mind. Take them out to lunch, send them something on their anniversary, celebrate that, celebrate those little things. They can just go a long way. And general awareness, guys. Sometimes we all have a bad day. Nobody is exempt from that. And if you're able to pick up on it and show and care, we don't need to know every detail of people's personal lives, but just be aware. And this goes the other direction. If you have someone that is dealing with an issue, or something has come along, or whatever their circumstances, don't be afraid to send them home and say, you've done a great job. I know you got this going on. And out of the blue, just say, hey, you know what? Why don't you go take care of what you need to take care of? That can absolutely turn somebody around in a day. They might be thinking, I'm going to have to go search for another job. I can't, this or that, or maybe employment related or not. Just show them a little bit of compassion, and that can truly, truly be super powerful. Timely feedback. Don't wait a year. Thank you, Dean. Don't wait a year to tell your employees what they're doing great and what they can work on. That's not very impactful. That's why at HR Advantage, we don't demand it, but we often, advise our clients, consider doing those quarterly check-ins, or just check-ins as you can do them, because it just keeps the pressure down when you have to have those annual reviews. And it's really a lot of pressure for you as a manager to try to remember all the things and write them down. So just a thought there. We're sharing some resources here. Yes, exactly. Nothing worse getting feedback only during your annual review. That is such a common thing with employees, to just not know where they stand. Raise your hand if you just love to be up in the air about something and just really not know. How many of us truly, is that human nature? So it's nice to let people know where they stand. And there's a lot of HR implications to that too. So I highly recommend, just if you have a concern or if you have a kudos, one or the other, don't sit on those for too long. Let people know where they stand and give them an opportunity to course correct or build upon their skills. And that's going to help your company and your team as well as the employee feel more confident in staying in their role and riding that train with you guys. That's really it. I hope this was helpful. Does anybody have any thoughts? Anything they want to share? I will try to gather a few things and send to Katie to give to you guys as a takeaway. That may not be today, but we'll send something out for you.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. We'll let people, if you've got questions, throw them in the chat or comments. We will send out, while we're waiting for those to roll in, probably by the end of the week, we'll send out an email with the recording of this session and whatever else you'd like us to throw in there, Elizabeth, resources and such.
Well, thank you guys so much for hanging with me today. Did anybody realize that today is Tuesday, 2 o'clock?
Mm-hmm. 2/22/22, right? At 2 o'clock.
Or am I the only dork in the room that thinks that's cool and weird and fun?
That seems like a good sign of something. I don't know. Dean says,
hey,
so
Dean,
too.
I see your question here about are there recruiter courses you can take? There are different resources, and I'm happy to connect with you offline or send Katie some thoughts for you. Recruitment is sometimes a whole career, and sometimes managers and folks in different industries are tasked with wearing that hat. So there are some resources that I can send you. They're getting married today because it's 2/22/22. Wow. And again, our meeting was 2 at 2. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Let's see. Oh, thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Well, we'll include, you've got Elizabeth's contact info there up on the screen, and we'll include that in the follow-up email as well, in case you'd like to reach out to her or learn more about HR Advantage. Elizabeth, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you guys so much. Everyone have a safe, and go get your bread and your milk and your alcohol before the weather hits.
Good advice. All right, we'll see you next time, Elizabeth. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.